Shabbat on a Torah level, cases where the person violates the Shabbat on a rabbinic level. And the Mishnah mentioned a certain amount of cases, and yet when it counts the cases, it does a short count. It's missing out, doesn't count all the cases that are mentioned in the Mishnah. And that was what was, so to speak, there's an expression, itching the person, itching the Gemara. But itching the Gemara is, I want to thank Anna for printing out some of the Hebrew English. Because itching the Gemara is, why weren't all the cases making it to the count? Just like the Rambam, Maimonides, he writes that not everything gets to there's a count of 613 mitzvot, right? We all know there are 613 mitzvot in morning. Yeah, this is a translation. Yes. The Rambam says that you have to have certain criteria to be counted as a 613 mitzvot. Even if you can have a mitzvah that's biblical, but doesn't mean necessarily, let's say something that's not written openly in the pasuk, most probably will not, I would think, will not make it to the list, even though there might be a drasha, right? The many drashot we learn in the Gemara, Gzeira Shava, we learn certain halachot. It says this word here, it says this word here. So the same way there's a certain law over there to apply over here, but not necessarily that's going to make it into the 613 mitzvot. It will be a biblical law, but not everything makes it into the counting of 613 mitzvot. So Rambam also says a rabbinic mitzvah is not counted as a 613 mitzvot. Let's say Hanukkah is coming up. That's not going to be counted as one of the 613 mitzvot. There is a mitzvah to listen to the rabbis, but the mitzvah of Hanukkah itself, there is a mitzvah, don't turn away from the rabbis tell you, but the specific mitzvah of Hanukkah, a specific mitzvah of reading the Megillah, is not part of the 613 mitzvah. It's a rabbinic mitzvah. Now, just to highlight, you're talking about 613 mitzvot. In this week's parasha, Yaakov sends a message to Lavan, to Esav, and he says to Esav, Lavan Garti, I live with Lavan, I've kept the 613 mitzvot. And the word Garti is the same letters of Taryag. Taryag means 613. Tuf is 400. Reish is 200. Yud is 10. And Gimel is 3. That's 613. Taryag is 613. And the word Garti also the same letters, just do a little, reverse it around, move it around, do a little Scrabble. It's 613. And Yaakov is telling Esav, you know what? I live with Lavan. I kept the 613 mitzvot, and I haven't learned from him. The obvious question is, why is Yaakov telling Lavan this message, right? Why is Yaakov telling Lavan this message that I live with Lavan and I've kept the 613 mitzvot? And I was thinking that Yaakov wants to say to Lavan, listen, to Esav, I want to make peace with you, but I want you to know who I am. I want you to know, I want to make peace, you're my brother, but it's not gonna be at the expense of my religion. It's not that I'm gonna make peace with you and you're gonna want me to be part of your culture, your melting pot, and to give up my values and what I live for, what I stand for. So Yaakov says, Im Lavan Garti. The first thing he says to his brother is Lavan Garti. I was with Lavan, I kept the 613 mitzvot, I did not learn from his evil ways, and I want to make amends with you. I want to work things out, but I'm not this. But you have to know who I am. Good morning, Nathan. Good to see you back. Okay, so if you see the papers that Anna printed out, Utameich Shitisa Havaya, right? It's according to your reason, this is like the last lines of Beit Amabeth of 2b, and in the art scroll was probably at least in this edition it was 2b3. Ulatameh, the French edition, Ulatameh Shitza Havayan. The Gemara says back there are 16 cases total in the Mishnah. And yet, you only listed 8 cases. In the counting, you said there are 2 cases that are biblically prohibited for the guy inside. He can violate the Shabbat in 2 ways on a Torah level, and the guy on the outside could violate the Shabbat in 2 ways. on a Torah level, and there's an additional 2 ways that the guy on the inside can violate the Shabbat on a rabbinic level, and the guy on the outside, there's 2 cases that are rabbinic for the guy on the outside. So there's 2 biblical violations for the guy inside, and 2 cases the guy on the inside can do rabbinic violations. And same thing for the guy outside. But really, the Gemara says there's a total of eight cases listed for each guy. So why is it that we only 4 cases are counted? That was the Gemara's question. The Gemara said that last question of we should have listed 16 cases, we should have counted. That's not a question. Why not? Amalei halokasha. That's not a question. Bishlama. Now, if you're now on Gimel Amud Aleph, now it's 3a. 3a1. You got it, David? You have it? Bishlama Bava de Resha. The case of the Resha, when the guy on the outside gives to the guy on the inside, or the guy on the inside gives to the guy on the outside, the cases where the Resha states, Resha is the Rosh, the beginning, the head, the beginning of the Mishnah, where the Mishnah states that one guy is Chayav, one Levi. One guy is Chayav and one guy is Patur, right? One guy violated the Shabbat because one guy did both the Akira and the Hanachat. He uprooted the item and he placed it down, right? And that combination of uprooting something and placing it down would be the violation of Shabbat. And if he did it unintentionally, if he took an item and he moved it from private to public or public to private, he violates the Shabbat on a Torah level only if he did both parts as well. What was both parts? He uprooted it, picked it up, and he placed it down. But the case of the Reisha, there's only one guy who did that. The other guy, Bava the Reisha, Paturu Mutar Loktani. The other guy did not do any part of the act of the violation of Shabbat. He did not pick up the item. He did not put down. He did not pick it up. He did not put it down. He only received the item, or it was taken out of his hand. He was inactive in the act, and therefore, since he was inactive in the act, we do not talk about that case. And we discussed yesterday, we said Tosos asked the question that, what do you mean? It's true that he did not do anything, but he received it and he helped facilitate a sin. That was the question that we asked morning, Nathan, yesterday, that we mentioned yesterday. So why isn't that a violation? One answer is given that it might be true that he did something wrong by accepting the item, right? If the poor man on the outside hands something to the guy on the inside, and the guy on the inside helped, of course he accepted it, he put his hands down and he accepted it. He wasn't proactive. He didn't put it down, but he didn't pick it up. He accepted he did a sin, but that sin is not about the Shabbat. Not about violation of the Shabbat sin. It's a different violation. It's about helping a person do a sin. That's not something that we're coming to count things that are forbidden because of the act of Shabbat. He didn't do anything regarding Shabbat. And therefore, we don't list that as a case. So we're not going to list those cases. The cases where the guy is patur, is exempt because he did not do either the picking up or the going down. So therefore, that we're not listing that's not called the Yisiyot Shabbat. That's not called the going out of Shabbat. That there was something that you could count. We're counting the situations where a person is violating the Shabbat when he didn't do anything regarding Shabbat. So we can't count those cases. So therefore, we got rid of 4 cases. We went from 16. Now we don't need 16 cases because there are 4 cases in the Mishnah that the guy is obligated and the other party is exempt. So therefore, we went now from 16 to 12. So the Gemara says, Ella, but bavad the seifa, the patur of al asur, but the case of the seifa, which is patur and asur, meaning the case of the seifa is sof, the end of the Mishnah, which is discussing when each guy did part of the act. One guy did the uprooting of the item, and one guy did the placing down of the item. So there we have four cases that the Mishnah mentioned in the end of the Mishnah where one guy did half the job. Now, if you do half the job, it's patur, but it's forbidden because you were part of this, you did one part of the act. So the Gemara says, of a patur, of a lasa kasha, that is problematic. That is a problem because why don't we list those cases, those four cases? And we only list two cases that are rabbinically prohibited, right? We said there are two cases that are biblically prohibited, with another two, which make a total of four for the guy on the inside. We should say there's another four, two biblical and four rabbinic. So that's the Gemara's question. And then the Gemara has the following question. We just stated, we just said, Rav Matna had said, Rav Matna asked the question. He opened up the Gemara where Rav Matna says the Mishnah. Why do we only count four? A total of four for each guy. We should count. There are 8 cases, so we should. There's an extra 4 cases. We should have 12, right? 2 and 4 for each guy. It's 6 for this guy. It's 12. His question was about 12. The other rabbi shot back at him and says, "Hey, Rabbi, you're asking about 12. Why don't you say 16?" So Rav Nathan said, "I'm not asking about this should be 16 because there's no question there shouldn't be 16 because those other 4 cases from 12 to 16, the guy didn't do anything. He didn't do any act of the malacha. He didn't do the uprooting or the placing down, and therefore, regarding Shabbat, it's not called asur. Regarding Shabbat, that's called mutar, permitted. So the Gemara shoots back. But what do you mean? We know that when the Mishnah states the word patur, when you find a Mishnah that says patur, exempt, what does the word exempt mean? You are patur. Does it? What do you say? From the obligation. You don't have. You didn't violate. You didn't violate the Shabbat. You don't have to bring a korban. You don't have to bring an offering, a sin offering. That's what patur means. Or he's not obligated death if he had witnesses and he did it intentionally. Patur. But it doesn't. But there's another word that the rabbis use called mutar. Mutar means it's permitted at the outside. There's something called mutar. You ever hear the expression b'diavad, after the fact? We say after the fact, okay, it's all right. For instance, the guy goes ahead and he went ahead and he said a bracha shahakol on an apple. Now, you're not supposed to say the bracha shahakol on an apple, but you don't go back, right? But lechatchila, what do you do? What are you supposed to do? Lechatchila, in the beginning, you're supposed to go ahead and say a bracha boyer priya eitz on the apple. But if you went ahead and you said a shahakol on the apple, right, Nathan, you get credit for it. B'diavad, but lechatchila, the guy didn't do it right. You're not supposed to say a bracha. You're not supposed to say a shahakol on an apple. You're supposed to say you should know what's the proper bracha. Today they have brachot apps. You want to, if you're not sure what bracha is, some of my guys they download an app. Look at the app. Good idea, right? It takes. What do you say about that idea, Adam? It's there. It's available. David, you hear that? Okay. Sir. Again, I'm telling you, you could live without it. David, you could live without it. We give you a brachot book. We used to have growing up. We had a brachot book, a little NCSY, National Council of Synagogue Youth, whatever. In the OU, they had a very little brachot guy with all the listed, and they still have it, still around. You can order it online. You can take it with you wherever you go. It's a little pamphlet. Maybe it costs $2. You know what I mean? Now, so there's something called, right, Ralph? There's something called patur, something called you're exempt. But the word exempt, morning, Rabbi, the word exempt means you're exempt, but it was still forbidden. It was a forbidden act. It was something that you should not have done. But even though you should not have done that, but you're not liable. You did something you should not have done, but we're not going to give you the punishment of an offering or whatever the other possible. You're exempt, but it's something you should not have done. So that's the Gemara's question. We have a rule that Shmuel says that wherever you find the word patur, exempt, and it doesn't say the word mutar, it doesn't say permitted. It says exempt. Exempt means you did something wrong, but you don't have to get the punishment. There's only 3 cases that the word patur was used. You're exempt, and you are not, and yet you're still permitted to do it. There's only 3 cases, but there's only 3 exceptions to the rule, and this does not make it as one of the exceptions to the rule. So how could you tell me that this case is not forbidden, and therefore it does not make these 4 cases where the balabayit, where the guy on the inside is obligated, or the guy on the outside is obligated? Why shouldn't they be counted? You're telling me they're not counted because it's permitted, but it's not true that it's permitted, because the rule is if the Tani says the word patur, exempt, the word exempt means that it's not permitted. And if it's not permitted, then it should be in the listing of the cases that are of the violation of Shabbat, of rabbinical violation. That's the Gemara's question. The Gemara says, "V'hamash," meaning, "Mi ika b'kulei Shabbat." Do we find in the Masechta of Shabbat patur mutar? Do we find patur mutar? V'hamash Shmuel. Shmuel says, now here we are on page, and now we're on the next page 3A1, and in Adam's edition, it's 3A1, it's on 819, on the second page, Shabbat 3A1. So where do we find throughout Shabbat that patur means it's permitted? Shmuel said that kol paturi the Shabbat, wherever you find the word patur, exempt on Shabbat, patur aval asur. It means you're exempt, but you did something wrong, but it's forbidden. You should not have done that. Just like the case when the guy does one part of the act, right? We said to violate Shabbat, right, Nathan? There's 2 parts, Nathan, right? There's something called the akira. You have to uproot an item and place it down, and hanacha. You place it down. If you did one of the 2, it's not. You did a rabbinic violation, not a biblical violation.
You have another example?
Another example of something that's rabbinic. I mean, if you do, meaning regarding Shabbat,
exempt.
You're exempt, yes. So, like if a guy goes ahead and he handles muksa on Shabbat, let's say, if a guy handles muksa on Shabbat, you're not allowed to handle your pen on Shabbat. But if you went ahead and you handled your pen on Shabbat, it's for patur. You're exempt from a korban. There's no offering for you to bring for violating that type of violation of Shabbat. So even though it's forbidden, not everything that's forbidden carries along with it a punishment of bringing an offering when you didn't follow. So, but there are 3 cases that we use the word patur, but it's mutar, but you're allowed to actually do it. One of those cases, it's not that you were not allowed, but after the fact, you don't have to bring an offering. You actually are allowed to do it in the get-go, so to speak. One of the 3. Right. So I was thinking, so that's a good question. I was thinking about that, Nathan, a little bit, that perhaps you use the word patur, that you should recognize that it's the only reason that there are nuances here. That meaning, if you do it in one, not always this type of act would, it's a type of act that, if you make a little change in the act, it would be a biblical violation, and therefore maybe by using the word patur, it makes the person, analyze it a little bit more, because he thinks it sounds like patur, that it's forbidden, but it's not forbidden, because there's something so close to it that is forbidden. Perhaps maybe that's why. Right. So you could understand why you want to use a language. You could say you're patur, but really it's permitted if we needed to do it because it was a life and death situation. But people have to be, people have to be careful about, that nuance, because it's that situation. That's what I was thinking, but we have to really research the mag. I did some homework why it uses that word, because look what the Gemara said. Look, I want you to listen to the cases, because I think you'll appreciate. But here, what are the three cases, the three exceptions to the rule? Patur muta, sidat tzvi, capturing a deer. What's that case talking about? You're not allowed to capture on Shabbat. One of the malachot on Shabbat is capturing. But what's the case talking about? A deer entered the house. So a deer enters the house. If you go in and you close the door, you trapped it, right? And a person went ahead and he sat down and by the entranceway of the house, a very narrow entranceway of the house, and that closed the house, and the deer can't go out. So that person who is violation of the laws of Shabbat, if he intended, he knew that there's a deer inside, and he's going with the intention to close the house, or he doesn't he forgot it was Shabbat. He thought I could do it. He's violating the Shabbat. And now, well, of course, if he does it unintentionally, he didn't know it was Shabbat, he'll have to bring a karban chatat, he'll bring a sin offering. If an additional person came, a second guy came, his friend came, and that friend also closed the house. Let's say here's the door, they're sitting like, here's the doorway is over here, and one guy is like this, and the other guy is like that. He also closed the door. That guy did nothing, because the guy, it was already trapped by the time the first guy went in. Still, second morning I saw when the first guy was by the entranceway of the house, of the opening, he already closed the opening. The fact that the second guy comes, David, you could take this. The fact that the second guy comes and he also closes it, but we didn't need his closing. It was already closed without you, right? So the second guy did not do anything, add anything to. He made a second closing on that house, right? He just doubled the closing, like you double wrap something. It was wrapped once, now I wrap it again. It was already the thing was already closed by the first guy, and then the Mishnah tells us what happens if the first guy gets up and he leaves. Now the animal's being trapped solely by the second guy, but when the second guy came, he wasn't adding anything. The fact that now it is technically being trapped through the second guy because the first guy left, but the second guy is exempt from a korban. He doesn't have to bring a sin offering. Not only does he not have to, Shmuel says, not only does he not have to bring a sin offering, technically he could lechatchila, he could go ahead and remain there. He doesn't have to move from that place.
Would he know there's a deer in the house, the second guy?
Say that again?
Would the second guy even know there's a deer in the house?
So let's say he knows there's a deer in the house.
Okay.
Warning. He's able to stay there and remain there because he'd done no action. His original action was nothing. He's just remaining in the place that he was in. Now let me give case 2. What's the case 2? We're talking about cases that are forbidden. That generally, in the Mishnayot of Shabbat, when it says if you did this, you're patur. Patur means you're exempt, but you shouldn't have done it. But you don't have to bring. But after the fact, you don't have to bring an offering for it, except the 3 exceptions. Now we're going through the 3 exceptions where it says they're patur, but it's actually permitted. What's the second exception? The first case, yeah, it's not an action, but now,
doing an action and it's Patur, but it's Mutar. In this case, it's not an action.
That's true, right? But you could have said, even though you did, again, you originally did an action by coming there, but we don't consider it that you have to bring a korban.
It would be some private city, the deer inside, and then Shabbat first, he has to move from his place.
Oh, so that's a good question. Would he have to move? Meaning we'd have to see those halachot. But the case that he talks about is that he came on Shabbat. Now, case 2, Sidat Nachash. It says if you capture a snake on Shabbat. Now, again, in general, you're not allowed to capture. You're not allowed to capture animals. But the capturing of a snake, you're allowed to do. Now, the question, what kind of situation are we talking about? If the snake is a deadly snake, if you were in danger, so of course you're allowed to capture a snake, right? Because if the person's life's in danger, there's a very interesting talking about, snakes. There are Shmona Shvatzim. The Torah says there are 8 types of teeming animals, creeping animals, that upon their death, if you come in contact with them, you become contaminated. You would have to go to the mikveh. Let's say one of them is let's say it sounds like a mouse. There are different types of those type of animals, and a snake is not one of them. So Rabbeinu Bachai asked, why isn't a snake? A snake was the animal that caused the sin with Chava and Adam. So shouldn't a snake, if you come in contact with a dead snake, shouldn't that make you contaminated? If the mouse or whatever those type of animals, weasel, that mouse or whatever those things will make you contaminate, if you come in contact with it, but certainly you would think that the snake is the epitome of the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination. Shouldn't, right, David? You hear the question? Why doesn't the snake make it to the list of 8? Those eight types of creeping animals, small teeming animals, that it doesn't make the list. Yes. That's true. That is a good point. But it's the same thing. It's not the snake, and it's not the scorpion. Okay, so the question is, that's true. So therefore, because of that, we don't want to make that. But we're talking about things that make a person tamei. We're not talking about making a person. You have to go to the mikveh. The mouse. Why should the snake be different than the mouse? Let's say, or the weasel, whatever it is. So Rabbeinu Bachai says something fascinating. Listen to what he says. Remember, he says, Torah does not want you to think twice about killing the snake, because a snake is dangerous. All the 8 things that are listed are not dangerous. If you would become contaminated upon being in contact with a dead snake, you might hesitate in killing the snake, because you don't want to get busy going to a mikveh and maybe now I can't eat the kachim, I can't eat the foods that are holy. It would restrict me becoming contaminated. So I thought that was a fascinating idea that he suggests. Therefore, the Torah does not want you to become contaminated upon killing the snake, because then maybe you would hesitate, and that will endanger your life. What do you think about that, Nathan? That's a beautiful. Is that beautiful, Asaf? Yeah, it's one of my favorite type of divrei Torah. You see the sensitivity of the Torah. So regarding the snake, the Gemara is going to explain that since, Shmuel, now there is something called a malacha she'ena sricha legufa, right? When you go ahead, there's something when you go ahead, if you capture an animal because you want the animal, that's called you did the act for the purpose of, I captured it because I wanted the animal. That's called the malacha is capturing for the purpose of the animal. But what about you go ahead and you capture the animal not because I want the animal? I'm not capturing because I want. The normal way of capturing, the idea of capturing something is to use the animal. That's the malacha of capturing. Is I'm capturing the item, I want to use it. I want to use the skins, I want to use it. But here, I'm not capturing for the use of the animal. I'm capturing for a side reason. What's the side reason? Because I don't want it to bite me. So that's called a malacha. We'll see more about it. That's not needed for itself. And Rav Shimon holds that type of act if you're capturing it for a side reason, not for the main reason why it's generally done, the purpose of the item, that would not be forbidden on a Torah level. And Shmuel says, in this case, since you want to prevent you from getting damage, even though you're not in a danger, any type of damage, so therefore there is an allowance to go ahead and capture this snake, because since you're capturing not in the way that's a violation of the Torah, because you're capturing it not for the purpose of the animal itself, it's for some side point, which in general, if you do an act not for the intent of the act, would be rabbinically prohibited according to that opinion. But in this case, not to have the certain pain from that snake, which, let's say we're talking about not a deadly snake, there is an allowance to capture that snake even lechatchila at the outset. Now, what's the third case? Mapis mursa. What's the mapis mursa? That a guy goes ahead and has something pus. He has a pus situation on his finger, on his hand, or wherever it is, and to make a hole to take that the pus should come out. So there, the Mishnah says that it's allowed. If your intention, and now there are also nuances. If depends what was your intent. If your intent is just that the pus should come out, then we'll allow you to make that opening. But if you had in mind to open up the item, that it should be an opening that remains open, that the air should come in and heal it, and the pus should come out on a regular basis, that's a big problem. That would be forbidden for you to do. But if you're going ahead and just making the opening just to take out the pus, and you don't care whether that opening should remain for the ear to come in or not to come in, you just want that pus out, and I don't care about that the opening should remain. So let's explain. Because if you go ahead and you want to leave it open, so like you're building, it's connected, like you're doing some sort of constructive, you're building something. You're building this, you're making this opening. You're making an opening to be there on a regular basis. So that would be a problem. So that's connected to perhaps building something. But when you're not building anything, you're not building this openly. You're not building this opening, because the opening is opening and closing. It's not built. It's not. You understand? It's not there for. It's just there for a second to open up, get out the pus, but not to remain. You know, the way to build is when you build something, you build it, you leave it. It's there. It's there in more of a permanent sense. So therefore, Shmuel says over there that in those cases, I mean, we'll have to look up in the laws of Shabbat. I don't think on Shabbat you're allowed to take out pus on Shabbat. You have to just wait till after Shabbat and then do your mini, surgery that you do on your hand and open it up. Break it open. Put a little needle or something. And open it up. But this is we have to look into the halacha practically. But what Shmuel is saying, at least the opinion of Shmuel, in that his opinion is he's saying over there that this would be, the rabbis will allow you to actually open up that pus if you're opening it up in order just to get out the pus, and you don't care that it should remain open, and the rabbis allowed it because since you did not really make it's not there for permanency and to prevent your pain that you have as a result of the pus. So the rabbis allowed you to go ahead. So those are the three cases that the word patur is used, but it doesn't mean that and it doesn't mean that it's forbidden, right? It's patur, and it's even allowed at the outset. So Nathan, if you notice, all three cases, there's such nuances. If I would just say, you know what, you're allowed to capture a snake on Shabbat, people will not. If I say it in such an open way, people wouldn't know that the snake is something different about capturing a snake than capturing other animals. So people say if you capture a snake, I capture other animals. Or if I tell you can open the pus thing on Shabbat, people won't know that it all depends why you're opening up the pus. If you're opening the pus to leave it open, that would be a problem. Or if I will tell you the other case of capturing a deer on Shabbat, you would think you could actually capture a deer on Shabbat. But the case of capturing the deer is only under the circumstance that the first guy was there and you just added to it and you didn't really do anything. So therefore, maybe perhaps the Tana was very careful in how he said his words. I want to wish everyone a beautiful Shabbat. We'll be back here on Monday. Thank you all for joining. Those cases are patur and permitted, exactly. Ralph, have a
Shabbat
beautiful
shalom.
Shabbat. Shabbat,
You
too.
too.
You
Bye-bye.
too. Ralph, everybody would like to say good Shabbat to you also, Ralph. All the best.
Tell
Nathan?
everybody I said Shabbat shalom.
Yes, okay, thank you.